episode 33 of the Fit Pro podcast.
If your whole life revolves around a trophy, you need to reevaluate why you're competing. That should not be the reason you step on stage.
Before we get into today's show, listeners, I just want to say how grateful I am for every single one of you subscribing to the Fit Pro podcast. If you have not already, make sure you head to the iTunes Fit Pro podcast page. I will leave a link in the show notes. And if you haven't, just search on iTunes for Fit Pro podcast. The minute a new show comes out, the second it comes out, you will be able to download the show for free and listen to it in your car on the way to work. That is how I listen to my podcast. One of my favorite podcasts at the moment is Hardcore History. It is amazing. Check it out. You learn as you're driving. Just like the Fit Pro podcast, you learn as you're driving. Except this one, you're learning about history and people that have come before you. My favorite one is, I think it's the Genghis Khan, the Wrath of Khan. That is a great series. This guy takes months to be able to create these podcasts. It's not like us where we release 4 or 5 every 2 weeks. It just takes him months to release like 4, and they're just top notch. Cool. So before we get into the show, listeners, make sure you head to the Facebook page as well. Give us a big thumbs up and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Fit Pro podcast, listeners. I am your host, Marvin Fayes, and today we have a very special guest. We have Laurin Conlin on all the way from America today. Laurin is the creator of Loco Fit Consulting. She is an IFB bikini fitness professional. She has a master's in exercise science and an entrepreneur based out of Tampa, Florida. Way more qualified than me. She's also an online coach. Laurin will teach you how to incorporate flexibility into your diet and training, prioritize your health, and enjoy your journey. She specializes in competition preparation, improving metabolism and health, and optimizing performance. Laurin, how are you today?
Good morning, Marvin. Well, good night to you. But thank you for having me on, and that was a fabulous introduction, so there's not really much to add to that. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. It's always a blast having new guests from the other side of the world on. But Laurin, take a quick moment and let the listeners know who you are personally before we get into the show.
All right. So I've been competing since 2011. So I started this and I was just really interested in training and kind of nutrition, but I didn't really know what to do. And competing is very big in Florida. So I actually went to a show and was like, wow, this is so cool. And then I decided to, the next year, actually do that same show. So I, prepped, kind of didn't really know what I was doing, but prepped anyways. And then I realized, like, wow, I really want to do this. At the same time, I was actually going to Florida State for my undergrad, and I was at the time studying dietetics, which then moved to exercise science. But so I kind of have a background in both of those things, and I've always really been interested in both nutrition and training. So competing and doing my undergrad together, I started competing more. And once I graduated, actually, and started the master's program in exercise science, also, as you mentioned, I started competing even more heavily, and that's actually when I turned pro, was once I had started the masters. So I've been competing and then, really interested in the science of things. And in my undergrad, I helped out with a little bit of research, and it got me interested in the whole idea of doing research, which is why I went to do the masters. I had an amazing advisor who was very open to whatever I wanted to do and kind of creating this culture of physique and female training. So he pretty much said, whatever you want to do, let's go for it. And that's how my research actually stemmed. And so what was really cool about my research was that I basically felt like I took on 30 clients, because I took these people through a post-diet period for about 22 weeks. So that's a pretty extensive amount of time. You get to know people pretty well. So that was cool. And at the same time, I had started the business also. So I was really learning the ins and outs of the business, keeping it small, also doing my research, also going to school, and all those things combined really set me up for when I graduated to have a successful business. I had already had kind of the kinks worked out. I'd already put in the groundwork, had my systems in place. And once I graduated, it's just been full-time since then. And that was just in May. And I know it seems really far, but like really close at the same time that I graduated. It seems like yesterday, but it also seems like eternity, right? So since then, things have really taken off over the past few months, and I was ready for it because I had slowly built everything up. So that's where I'm at now, full-time coaching for nutrition and training, and I also do posing consults. Everything is online. Everything is either email or Skype-based, which is very interesting. It's kind of like a whole new world.
Yeah.
For me, it's super normal because I know a lot of people who are also very successful coaches. So to me, it doesn't seem out of the ordinary, but it's been amazing. And I'm currently prepping for my second pro season. So it's prepping is fun because I love competing, but it's also something that I enjoy doing now as a business owner for my clients. So when I go through things, I know that I'm not the only one, and that as I'm learning more about myself, I can help them and be a better coach to them. So that's the other reason I enjoy competing, is because I can really kind of learn and put myself in it. So when someone says, oh, this happened or XYZ, I can relate and I can sometimes have an answer for them. So it's been an exciting journey so far. I've been prepping for about 16 weeks, and I plan to be prepping for several more before my first show even starts. So it's been a long, slow prep, but like I said, I've learned a ton, and I've been trying to document as much of the process as possible for myself and for my clients.
Perfect. So it really sounds like
that was super long-winded.
That's the podcast. We're done. We don't need to do anything else. We're done, guys. See you later. No, that's a lot of stuff, obviously, to cover, and it seems like a lot of stuff you've basically come to like a climax this year, where you've built up a few things, and you've sort of they've taken on a life of their own, which is awesome. But let's break it down into its parts. So you are you're an IFBB bikini professional, so you're prepping at the moment for that. And one thing that I like to stress with people that are obviously competing is there's a good way and there's a bad way of doing things.
Oh yes.
Right? Both ways will get you on stage, depending on like what the outcome's going to be. But in your experience, what is the good way and what is the bad way to prep to get on stage? So for the girls and guys out there that are thinking about it, there's a bad way, and Laurin's going to explain it right now.
So I think the most optimal way to prep is there's a few things that need to be in place. Before you even start a prep, you need to be in a place mentally that is ready to take on a competition prep. This is the piece that most people forget about, and they just think, oh, I'm unhappy with how I look, I should probably diet. That is not where you need to be mentally at all before a competition prep, because that is not going to solve any of your problems. So before a prep, you need to be at this maintenance phase, which is a very difficult phase for most people, especially the females that I work with. I work with 98% females, so most of them, it's hard. And I've been through this too. The maintenance phase is very difficult because you're not, you feel like you're not really doing anything, quote unquote. And whereas extremes are a lot easier, like, oh, I'm going to cut food, and then, oh, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I'm just going to bulk up, and I'm going to do this. Like, that's a lot easier than just kind of like, let me just walk around eating a normal amount, maintaining a normal weight. That's very mentally taxing. But I think it's important to be there. It's also important to be eating a good amount of food. If you are off season, maintaining your weight at 1,200 calories, not a good idea to start a competition prep. Also, the same idea goes with cardio. If you are using cardio to maintain your body weight, that is not ideal. Now, am I saying that you have to be doing zero cardio? No. There are people who really enjoy doing cardio. It makes them feel good. It makes their performance better, all these different things. If you're somebody like that, then that is fine. But if you are using cardio as a way to burn calories and maintain your weight, that's not good. So psychologically, I really have to kind of tease out if somebody just genuinely enjoys doing a little bit of cardio or if they're relying on it. So all those things need to be in place before you even start a prep. Then, once you do start a prep, you need to be realistic with yourself. If you have a few pounds to lose, great. If you have 25, that's not going to happen in 10 weeks, right? It could, but then that's going into the what's not optimal range, right? Yeah. Like we talked about, good, bad. I like to use optimal and things like that because of semantics of good and bad. But yes, there's definitely a bad way to prep, and that would be to, crash diet for 6 weeks and then get on stage. So ideally, the longer, the better. And it's very hard to, again, as a female, I'm speaking for most of the females here. There are so many shows nowadays in the States, particularly. Over there, you guys have more of like a set season and schedule.
Yeah.
Over here, especially in Florida. In Florida, there's typically from March to the beginning of December, there's a show every weekend. So
it's like going to movies.
Yeah, it is literally ridiculous, and it mentally is challenging because you feel like, oh, I should just compete all the time. And so when in reality, you really need to take a step back and say, okay, how much do I really need to lose? How much, how long do I really need to do this? And usually the longer the better. People might be listening to this and go, oh, she's a coach, of course longer is the better. They're gonna, they're paying her to do that. No, it's not about that. It's about the long-term implications of a crash diet or a shorter diet. Because the harder you have to diet in the shorter amount of time, the harder the rebound typically is going to be. So that's what I'm really trying to avoid as a coach, and as a competitor myself, I understand what that's like. I have been through everything. I've been through the ups and the downs and the really highs and the really lows. So trust me when I say it is better to prep slower. It is better to take your time, and instead of saying, oh, I need to lose 3 pounds this week, saying, okay, oh, I lost a pound this week. Great. Let's keep making progress. You know what I mean? So again, you can do it, but it's maybe not the best idea.
Yeah. So that's definitely, obviously, there's the optimal way and then the non-optimal way of doing things. See, I changed my language for you. And the one thing I've seen, especially with the competitive side of things now, especially over the last, say, like 5 to 6 years, it's turned into a hyper trend, just like the fitness industry is turning into this hyper trend where everyone wants to jump on board. Now, what I see as a spectator is you see the people that get on stage that want to win, and you see the people that get on stage to take the selfie, right? How is that? Let's say, how is that sort of? Has it diluted the competition or made it easier? Has it made it harder to stand out on stage? How's that affected being a competitor, like a true competitor on stage?
So I always want to be aware that everyone has a story and everyone has a background, right? It's very as a spectator, sometimes you'll watch and you're like, why is that person on stage? But you have no idea what they overcame to get there. They could have had a divorce and lost 50 pounds, and that's what they look like, and that's their best, right? So there's always going to be people who get on stage just because it's a goal. There's always going to be people who get on stage to, okay, I'm winning a pro card, I'm doing everything to put into this. And then there's people who just do it kind of, like you said, maybe just get into it, this is fun, let me try it out. I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. Yeah. People argue that bikini has brought in too many people who, it's not really like bodybuilding anymore. And I don't think it ever was supposed to be. And I think that it's very good that there's another outlet, right? So bikini specifically, about 50% is judged not on your physique. It's judged on everything else. So this has opened up a huge market for people who, want to train hard, want to look good, but also bring the presentation aspect to it. Whereas before with figure, you had to look a certain way, and if you didn't fit into that mold, you really weren't going to stand out very well. So I think bikini has opened up a new market for people, and it has brought in the people who maybe just kind of say, hey, I want to jump on this, I look pretty good. But at the same time, I don't think that's necessarily bad. It has made the shows a lot bigger. So when you are competing and there are a lot of girls, it can be, it can sometimes rush things a little bit. That may be the only downfall. But at the end of the day, there's so many shows that they've kind of, taken on, they've handled it better, I think, over time, as the division has evolved. And I'm speaking specifically to bikini right now just because there's way more bikini and even men's physique than there are, if you go to a local show, there's, so many more, a disproportionate amount of men's physique and bikini competitors to everything else. Now, if you go to a national show, you might go see, I was just at a show, perfect example, this weekend. There was 3 bodybuilders, male bodybuilders. But you go to nationals and the classes are stacked, right? So at some point, the best of the best, cream of the crop, whatever you want to call it, are going to get together and compete against each other. So I don't think that it's made it any easier, or, you know, I think that the best people are still going to have to compete against the best people. And yes, at the national shows, there's still way more bikini girls than there would be bodybuilders, right? But that's just, I think, the nature of the sport. And I think that at some point, the best people still will rise to the top and get noticed, even though there are a lot of other people. I think that if you are, you know, quote unquote, the best, or you stand out the most, you still will get noticed.
Yeah, definitely. I think the cream always rises to the top. Especially
I was trying to think of that phrase, and then I couldn't remember. I'm like, there's a cream and there's a rice, and I'm
So yeah, look, the cream definitely rises to the top, and I think obviously as a spectator, you can see that when everyone walks on stage, you go, yeah, those are the 3 best, sort of thing. Yeah. And sometimes again at the national shows, obviously it's super hard to do that, but at the local shows, you can see it.
Yeah, shows it's very easy to kind of disseminate. National shows are so competitive nowadays. You have to have everything on point. Which I think is a cool challenge. And people say, oh, they give out so many pro cards. Well, yeah, but there's 1,000 people at the show. You know, so giving out like 15 pro cards really isn't that many in the grand scheme of it, in my opinion. But
yeah. So how long did it take for you to get your pro card?
I did, like I said, I did my first show in 2011. Then I took 2 years off, and then I did actually a show about a week or 2 prior to that same exact show, but 2 years later, and started competing really heavily after that. So I did a show, and then I took 2 years off, and then I did 3 shows, and then I did 5 more the next year. And so I finally turned pro at that last show. So I did, I did about 5 qualifiers, or 4 qualifiers, and about 5 national level shows. I used to do figure, and so when I first started competing, I was doing figure, and I did a few local shows, did decent, and then I did 2 national shows, and it was very apparent that I did not have the physique to turn pro for figure in the IFBB, and then I made the switch to bikini, and then I did 1 local show, bikini, won that, and then did several national shows back to back, and then that's how I won the overall at nationals to win my pro card.
Oh, wow, awesome. So what would be the what qualifies you to get your pro card? Because this is obviously brand new to me. I've never really competed. And again, there may be listeners that it's brand new to them or are thinking about getting into it. And how much work and what sort of qualifies you to get your pro card?
All right, so I can only speak for the NPC and IFBB. I know it's a little bit different over there. But I think there's a similar kind of tiered system. So essentially, you go to a national qualifying show, which is what we would consider a local show, but usually they're like the larger local shows. So when you're there, you have to get top 3, I believe, to get nationally qualified. Then, once you're nationally qualified, you can go to 1 of 6. There's 6 national shows per year. And then at the different national shows, there's different ways to win your pro card, but it's either usually win your class or get top 2 in your class. In bikini and figure, there's height classes, so it's A through F, and then I believe actually women's physique is also height. The only ones that are weight are women's bodybuilding, which is pretty much gone away, and bodybuilding, of course, regular and 212s. Actually, no, there's no 212. That's pros. There's weight classes in bodybuilding, and then everything else is height. So, essentially, if you get either you win your class or you get top 2 in your class, that qualifies you to be a pro. Now, that sounds very simple, very easy. As you heard, it took me 10 shows, 9 or 10 shows to get my pro status. And essentially, the qualifiers it depends on where you're at. It depends on, sometimes you'll go to a national qualifier and they're very small. Sometimes you go to a national qualifier and they're very large. And then, so that's kind of hit or miss. But when you go to the national shows, there's typically at least 1,000 competitors total. and there's usually at least 250 to 350 bikini girls. So there's, that's about 30 to 40 people in your class, and these are all people who have gotten top 3 at a qualifier. So again, they might have gotten a top 3 qualifier in a really small show and just kind of squeezed in there, or they could have won, a massive show and looked their best. So, but typically, most of the people at the national level shows look good. What happens at those shows when there are 30 and 40 girls in your class, they're judging what's wrong with you. So they're not looking what's right, they're looking for what is wrong. So every little detail matters. And sometimes I tell the girls, I'll look at, I just went to USA, the NPC USA's in Las Vegas. It's one of the national shows. And we had a girl, my friend coached her, and she was in A class, which is the short class, and there was like 50 girls or something. It was a ridiculous class. And she got like third or fourth call-outs, and she looked great, And she got off stage, and I go, listen, it's not that you looked so different than second or fourth or last call-out. It's the split second that you walked on stage and you didn't showcase XYZ that the girls in first call-out did. And in a show that big, if the second you walk on stage, you don't grab their attention, they're going to stop looking at you. So all the little things matter. The confidence matters. The hair matters. The way your suit is sitting matters. Because at the end of the day, most people have a glued ham tie-in, right? It can be really hard at the big shows, when you're in those second, third, fourth, fifth call-outs, and you're like, what did I do? Like, I looked at the other girls, and I didn't really look that different. And it's not always about what you look like. It's about how you presented yourself.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Winning a pro card, especially in bikini, and even now in figure, because they're starting to kind of look at that more because the level of presentation has gotten so much greater. You really have to nail it from the second the second that you're visible to the judges, you have to be on point. And from the second you're on to the second that you're off, because chances are, if you take a wrong step, or you don't look at them, or you're not engaging, they're just gonna move on.
Yeah, for sure. And that's crazy, because it definitely is a sport of judging what's wrong, what you didn't do right, basically.
Yep.
And especially when, again, talking to females more, I think there's obviously going to be guys out there as well, but how mentally strong do you have to be? Because this is like, it's a judging contest. It's like, yeah, you get the blue ribbon sort of thing.
Yeah, well, so to me, I've always, I used to partake in judged sports my whole life. I used to ride horses, and everything was judged. So from a very young age, I've always done subjective type sports. So I think that has helped me not really hold too much weight with that. So for me, I understand that there's a subjective nature, and I understand that there's a lot of things that go into it. And I think if you go into it knowing that, you're setting yourself up better. I think, again, it kind of goes back to the mentality of the prep that we talked about before you even start prep. If your whole life revolves around a trophy, you need to reevaluate why you're competing. That should not be the reason you step on stage, is to win a trophy or not. And if you don't, you getting really upset. You really need to reevaluate, because there are so many other factors that go into a judged sport versus, you have abs or you don't. You can't hold what somebody as a judge says as validation to how you look, how you feel, how you live your life. It's a sport, it's a competition, it's fun, you know what I mean? And it should be looked at as nothing other than that. Not saying that I don't take it seriously, I take this very seriously, right? But you have to not hold it in a certain way that would make you upset if you don't win. And, I think that comes with practice and time. And, everyone's for show, or everyone's, I looked my best, I really want to do well. Of course, everyone wants to do well, everyone wants to win. But really kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, this isn't the only thing I do in my life. That's really important. And I think that can help with the mentality.
And that was episode 33 of the Fit Pro podcast. When you get a chance, make sure you head to www.laurinconlin.com and check out her consulting website, so you can find out how she can help you today before the next next part of this episode airs. Basically, let's say air. On podcasts, I think they air. But yeah, that was Laurin Conlin. She's an amazing person. Check her out for sure on all her social. There will be links in the show notes as always. Other than that, make sure you head to facebook.com/fitpropod. Give us a big thumbs up. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, head to fitpropodcast.com and check out the episodes we've been doing lately. I've been doing a lot of quick, sharp, to the point 5-minute episodes. I find them really informative personally. Well, it's me speaking, so how can it not be? But yeah, that's also pretty cool. We're doing some pretty cool stuff. If you think it's all pretty cool, head to itunes.com, search FitPro Podcast, and leave me an honest 5-star review. How's that? An honest 5-star review. I don't think I have anything else for you. Oh, one more thing actually. If you have not already, make sure you go to alphastateapparel.com.au. Check out my brother's clothing line. He's doing big things. He's got a few new designs dropping soon. And yeah, that'd be pretty cool. If you did that, then you want to be cool. So, if you want to be cool, head to his page. That being said, that's all I have to say. Peace.